Hello guys, and welcome to another video. My name's Mark, I'm an entrepreneur and property investor, and in today's video I'm going to go through the 7 millionaire habits that I believe have really helped change my life. And it wasn't until I was about 28, 29, my late 20s, that I started implementing a lot of these. And I didn't really do it in a consistent or a measured way. It just kind of happened over time as different people told me different things and I started to implement them and see change. But these are the sort of things that I think really make a difference when it comes to investing for the long run and building long-term wealth. So let's get into the video, but before we do so, if you could possibly drop me a quick like, I'd massively appreciate it. It helps the algorithm out, it makes sure more people get access to this sort of content, and also if you haven't already subscribed, consider subscribing. We're going to be giving away an investment property on this channel once we get to 100,000 subscribers, and on top of that, every month we're already giving away the dividend income from the subscriber portfolio. So check out my other videos for that. Guys, let's get into this and let's look at number one, which is budgeting and tracking your spending. Now, I believe that being really conscious and knowing exactly where your money is really important. Quite often, people say, I don't know where it all goes. Now, that's the reality for a lot of people. They're on autopilot and they don't know where all their money goes. When you start looking at where you're spending money, you can quickly rein in areas that you might be out of control. I've met people before that buy a coffee every single day, £5 a day from Starbucks. Now that's actually £150 a month. That's a lot of money. You know, there are lots of little changes that can add up to a huge difference. Another big one would be car expenses. Do you need 2 cars in a couple? You know, there's lots and lots of things. But first of all, it starts with being aware of the situation, aware of what the budgets and trackings should be. The second thing that I want to go into is that people quite often try and time the market. Now this is really, really important. Don't try and time the market. I think it was John Bogle, or Jack Bogle as he was known. He said, I've never met anybody who can consistently time the market. Furthermore, I've never met anybody who's met anybody who could time the market consistently. And I think that's really important advice, right? If you're going to try and time the market, the odds are that you're going to fail. Lots of investors have tried. The odds are vastly against anybody ever managing this. So consistency and being automated in your approach and having a good consistent plan, generally speaking, will win over trying to time the market every time. The third thing on my list is automate your investing. Now, I'm a big believer in this. I think that sometimes we try to overcomplicate things by doing a bit here, a bit there. If you actually just automate it and set a budget, again, it comes back to point one. I, in my early days, was budgeting about £1,000 a month into my investment pot. That went into an ISA. Once that grew enough, I would then buy a property. I'd then keep going £1,000. Maybe it was £1,500 now. So I think, again, it comes back to that consistency and automating things. And it was very much part of my journey that investing money was always put aside. It was never missed. Number 4, understand the investments that you go into. Now, this is key. There are always new investment opportunities, and it is your job to understand what BS sounds like in many different languages. It takes only 10 years if you invest £10,000 to have all the money in the world at a 1,000% return. So you know this isn't possible, right? Like literally you must know that those sort of returns are impossible. And furthermore, you know, it was written, I think, in The Richest Man in Babylon, gold flees from those that expect unrealistic earnings. And that's the reality. You've got to understand the investments, they've got to be realistic, 10 to 20%, really solid returns. If you're getting anywhere near that, that's an excellent return on investment. The second someone's talking about hundreds of percents a year on a consistent basis, just do a quick compound interest calculator, work out what would happen if you put £100,000 in and how long it would take you to have all the money in the world. And then work out whether that's realistic, if that's possible. And if it is, great, you've got the secret that everybody wants. Congratulations. But the reality is, it probably isn't going to work. Consistent to your vision. This is my 5th one on here. Now, being consistent to your vision really means having a vision, okay? What does your life look like in 10, 15 years' time? And I've produced a resource. If you look in the description, there's a spreadsheet in there. I think it's under resources. You can download it free of charge, and it'll give you an idea of what your vision can look like. If you invest £1,000 a month, and you start with 50k as your initial deposit, and you invest £1,000 a month for 5 years, at the end of that, if you invest at a 20% return on investment in HMOs, then you can return somewhere around £100,000 a month in year 15. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. So I just think it's really important to have a clear vision of where you're going, and then it will make it all worthwhile when you're budgeting, right? Like when you're denying yourself that Starbucks every day and instead you're making a coffee at home, it means that it's a reason behind it, right? And you have to have enough reasons why in order to get to the destination. If you haven't got a strong enough reason, chances are you fall off track, and so many people fall off track because they're not being pulled towards and staying consistent to their vision. Number 6 on my list was being careful with advice. Now this is so important. You wouldn't necessarily take dietary advice from somebody who is obese, or I certainly wouldn't. Everybody wants to give advice, and there's an adage, isn't there? Advice is only worth as much as it costs. But that's not necessarily true. Most of the best advice that I've been given in my life has come free of charge. But it's been my job to disseminate whether that advice has been good or bad, because the reality is that a lot of people don't actually know what they're talking about. I've recently had people trying to pitch to me certain investment products. I know in my heart it sounds great, it sounds wonderful, 300% return, 500% return, cryptocurrencies, all this sort of stuff. I know that there's no way if I invest £10,000 that in 5 years' time I can have 100 billion. It just shouldn't be possible and isn't possible. So I'm very careful with who I take advice from. My vision is very much a long-term vision. I'm very realistic with the returns I'm expecting, 10 to 20%, very solid return base, and my vision is over the next 10 to 15 years to grow my wealth consistently. The last one I've got on here is to spend your investment income on luxuries. And this is a two-parter. Number one, it's kind of like to hark back to don't spend your earned income on luxuries, spend that on investing. But also to remind you to spend your income on luxuries when it comes from your investments. I think it's really important to be measured, right? Once your investment pot is full and starting to overflow and money's coming to you nice and freely, you should unshackle yourself, if you like, allow yourself some luxuries and go out and start spending a little bit. Life is short, life is finite. So it's really important that you balance your long-term wealth with your short-term happiness. Too many people, though, in my experience, balance it the wrong way. Lots of short-term happiness, not much long-term wealth. But I think once you've bought into the idea of building your wealth over time, you've done your calculations, you've got your vision, you're automating your investing, it is important at a point to understand that once the investment income's flowing, to start enjoying yourself as well. For me, that's meant upgrading my house, it's meant having nicer cars, nicer holidays, all that sort of stuff. But really, it's really important that, again, this is another reason why. So hopefully, guys, that this gives you a little bit of a perspective of my 7 millionaire habits that I believe have helped me in the past, and I'll continue to use these in the future. Let me know in the comments if you think I've missed anything. Otherwise, I've massively enjoyed putting this video together, and I'll see you guys next time.